it revolves around this idea of where does this tournament place MLS in terms of like these league standings, right? We always have this conversation like, oh, MLS is a top five or top 10 league, top 15, top five, top whatever, right? Now we have an opportunity to see how we line up against other leagues and your thoughts on kind of what does this do for the way that MLS is looked at globally.
Well, I think at the end of the day, the big European leagues are still kind of the top dogs. Like we're kind of at the stage where we expected it to be. Like the final is two large European teams facing off against each other. I would say definitely Brazil's stock rose the largest in this tournament. I mean, they all performed very well and were very competitive, constantly giving the European teams a hard time. I think all of them got out of their group. I'm checking right now. Botafogo, Palmeiras, and Flamengo. And they made good runs in the knockouts too. I mean, granted, a lot of them played each other, but still, they were getting results and I think they've risen their stock the most. I think MLS did a good job for their stock as well. At the very least, I don't think they dropped their stock. And, I think maybe they even raised it a little bit with Miami's performances. I'd say if I had to give a number in terms of where it's ranked, probably, I'm not sure if they're quite in the top 10. If they are, they're probably very low in the top 10, like around 10. I think more realistically, they're probably just outside of the top 10, but I think making good progress towards eventually getting their way into the top 10.
Yeah, for me, it is this idea, and I was kind of hinting at it before. One-off games don't mean much, right? So we're not taking anything from one result here or there. But what I think that we can say is that unless you are the European champions or up in that level, nobody really blew us out of the water, right? No matter where they were from. However, on the negative side, we did not show that we're miles clear of anybody from other leagues either. Disappointing because it's self-inflicted with roster rules and restrictions and such. And we've already gone through how we need to change them. We do this every other episode, it feels like. We talk about roster rules, right? But I guess my question here is do owners see this and say, time to make some changes?
I think it depends on the owner you're talking to. I think the Miami owner would say, yeah, absolutely. Like we were this close to being in a situation where we're competing for a potential quarterfinal in the Club World Cup. If we had just a little bit more flexibility in our financial spending, we could have been there. I think you look at teams like that have historically just not spent, like a Montreal, and I don't think it changes anything for them. I'm hoping the teams that were kind of on the fence and not necessarily already with a set track record are seeing this and saying, in 4 years, when this happens again, we want to be a team in this competition. Even if it's just like we want the chance to win a bunch of money from it, I think that would be beneficial. So I'm hopeful that it did have an effect on some of the owners that are a little bit more on the fence and kind of like willing to have a change in the way that they spend or the way that the league spends. But I think there are still going to be a few owners that like basically there's going to be like nothing that gets them to change unless they're just forced out of being an owner.
Yeah, yeah. I think there's gonna be a lot more pushback. Whether there's change or not, I don't know. But I think what you mentioned with the monetary incentive is important, right? If you're going to tell somebody, hey, you can go spend $10 million on three players that are going to make your team much more competitive, and then potentially turn that into double your investment with a win, a draw, and a game in the next round with this tournament, absolutely they're going to make that call. That's easy because not only that, you're improving your play in the league, and you give yourself better chance at Leagues Cup and MLS and U.S. Open Cup and whatever you're in, right? But that quick turnover and investment, I think, is something that will push people in the right direction. Now, are you pushing the right people to do that? And do those people have enough pull in the room to make changes that are important, right? The CBA is coming up at some point relatively soon. Is that going to be enough to turn them in the right direction? I don't know. But I do think that you're going to start seeing more and more because, like I said, we're starting to see these people creep up, right? Jorge Mas keeps talking out. We saw Will Kuntz starting to talk out, and we're seeing all these other owners who are like, it's time to go. And we're going to talk a little bit in Wednesday's episode, so make sure you follow for that. We're going to talk about if there's pressure on these guys from other outside sources to start making changes quicker. And this, again, might be one of those outside influences that are making that happen.
I sure hope so. I mean, I'm ready for much looser restrictions. I'm sure you are. I'm sure lots of fans are. But again, there should be some conversation to be had on how much to loosen the restrictions, and that's a whole other that could be an entire episode in itself. So I don't want to like steer us down that tangent.